to another episode of Founderama. All right. Yesterday we spoke about solving the real problems of customers, your startup, and I want to continue that theme today and for the rest of the week. So, in today's episode, we're talking about how to validate a startup idea. I'm calling this the ultimate guide. Well, okay, I'm going to be touching about basics. Probably not an ultimate guide, but it is something to get you started, to talk about validating your startup idea. Because without validating, um, yeah, you're gonna face a lot of problems. Even if you get funded, if you don't validate your startup idea thoroughly, then you're gonna have a lot of problems. So let's look at what this is about, right? We'll be discussing the essential steps for validating your startup idea, which is a crucial aspect of building a successful startup. Whether you're bootstrapping or looking to raise your pre-seed or seed funding, idea validation is a critical step that you cannot afford to overlook. I cannot emphasize this enough. Validating your idea, validating the problem, the solution that you're coming up with, whether you will have the audience for it, whether you will have customers, whether you'll make money, whether you'll be profitable. All this depends on validating the idea, right? So, why is idea validation important? To ensure that you're building a product or service that solves a real problem in the market. That is why it is important. Because too often, founders start building products without first verifying there is a genuine need for them. To understand your target customers, their pain points, and what they're looking for in a solution. That's why you need idea validation. This understanding is essential for creating a product that resonates with your audience. Because you know what? The difference between a successful product and a mediocre product or service is very thin. It's a thin line. And you can be on either side of the line depending on how much effort you put into this step, which is idea validation in the beginning. It's important to validate your idea because it reduces the risk of failure by helping you avoid investing resources into an idea that won't work. By validating your idea, you can make informed decisions about whether to move forward or pivot. In my entrepreneurial career, from 1998, 26, 27 years or 28, whatever it is, right? The number of times pivoting has saved my ass, I can't count on, right? So pivoting, but pivoting depends on validation of the idea. So it's important to validate the idea because it helps you to refine your product concept. So it's more attractive to investors. Investors want to see that you've done your homework and have a clear understanding of your market and your customers. So these are the reasons why validating your idea is critical. It's the most important thing. So how do you validate your idea? The first way is market research. Conducting market research helps you to evaluate the potential market size for your product. You need to know that there is a large enough market to justify your investment of time and resources. But a word of caution here. Just because the fintech market is a $1 trillion market segment, TAM, don't focus on that, right? In fact, try and nail it down, drill down to the least amount of market segment in terms of numbers that is realistic and yet shows the potential, right? If you know what I mean. I talk about this all the time, so you should know what I'm talking about. Market research also helps you identify your competitors, understand their strengths and weaknesses, and evaluate the demand for your product. You need to know what you're up against and how you can differentiate yourself. Like yesterday, I was talking about your USP and why it's so important. This is part of it. This is the other piece of the puzzle. And doing market research is very critical for that, right? You can use a variety of methods for market research, including surveys, focus groups, online research, and interviews, right? So choose the method that makes the most sense for your product and your budget. Because surveys, okay, actually, if you have been building up relationships, and this is what I was speaking about last week, you got to build a network even before you're ready to get your MVP out there and to build for funding. You need to build a network of investors, advisors, peers, other founders, and market experts, all this. Because when the time comes, you can reach out to this network and ask for a favor. If you've been building a relationship, right? Not just connecting, you send connection requests on LinkedIn and a few people might accept your connection request. And then out of the blue, a few months later, you send an email. Hey, can you fill this survey, right? No, nobody. They're not going. Yes, you may get a few people, but I'll be very brutally honest here, and I may offend people, but that's okay because my job is not to be nice. My job is to try and be correct. And the people who usually respond to those cold requests for service are people that probably are not the right audience for you, and their survey is moot, is useless. So build that, and then you can go for focus groups. Some focus groups they charge. If you have a little bit of budget, go for that. That's a bit better. Online research, even better. Interviews are the best. If you can do direct interview, if you can do 10 good interview, if you have, so you need to build the buyer persona, right? And these customer avatars and all that. And actually, you know what? Maybe on Wednesday or Thursday, I will do a live episode on how to build these buyer personas and avatars. If you have that, then identifying those, finding the right kind, exactly 10 of them, 10 interviews, fantastic. And of course, figure out a way of how to get these interviews with these people. Maybe you can pay them. Maybe you've been building a relationship. So maybe offer them for value first. It's an exchange of value, right? Okay, so understanding your target customers. To validate your startup idea, you need to understand your target customers, their pain points, and what they're looking for in a solution. You can't create a successful product if you don't know what you're building. Well, you know what? This may sound like an obvious kind of point, but look, it's all about the nuances, right? It's all about the details. And that's why I'm trying to put it here. Again, focus groups, surveys, interviews. Yeah. Customer personas, these are really important. And on Thursday, I will try and dig deep into how to build these personas, because they not only come into play validating your idea, but your customer personas, your avatars, whatever you want to call them, archetypes, they play a part. They determine the path of your startup and the product development, the MVP, a lot. Investment, of course, funding in the beginning. Of course, building a minimum viable product, an MVP. Now, even if you're not a SaaS startup, an MVP or an MVS, minimum viable service, right? It's about the minimum that you can do to provide a service or a product out there. It's a basic version of your product that allows you to test your assumption and gather feedback from users. It's not a fully featured product, but it should include the core features that solve your target customer pain points. If you can do an MVP with a minimum amount of budget, bootstrapping, and even before you get your seed funding, pre-seed funding, it's a great way to validate your idea, right? A few $1,000s, few $100s, or sometimes no money spent if it's just yourself and you can code and all that. And you put it out there and you look at the reception. If people don't care, or they find it interesting, but they're like, they give it a try. 2 days later, they don't log back in. You got a lot of churn. You got a lot of abandonment. Then you know that, okay, this is not the right solution for the right problem. So you go back to the drawing board. So, for an MVP, don't try to build all the features. Just do the ones that you think are the hooks of the meat of the solution you're providing for the problem, right? You can use tools like wireframes and mockups to design your MVP and gather feedback from users. Keep it simple and user friendly. Next, gathering user feedback. You should use surveys, interviews, and focus groups to gather feedback from users on your MVP. Make sure to ask open-ended questions that allows user to give detailed feedback. So a lot of people, they make the mistake of giving options A, B, C, D, and they think that that way, the ones who are participating in these surveys and focus groups and all, they will be more motivated to simply choose A, B's. Actually, yes, but also no, because if you keep it open ended, you will uncover pain points and ideas that you did not think about, right? So one of the users may actually write out a free flowing kind of statement saying, actually, you know what? There are other solutions out there. What I'm actually looking for is this, and you don't have it. So there you go. And that might be a day when you're like an epiphany. Oh, okay. Maybe we can pivot. Maybe we can bring that into the flow. And sometime, and you know what? A lot of the great features of some great products out there happen just like that. Pay close attention to feedback you receive and use it to refine your product concept. Don't dismiss negative feedback as it can help you identify areas for improvement. Yes, in fact, I always look for negative feedback because positive feedback is good. Yes, it reinforces our idea, but validation actually comes from negative feedback rather than positive feedback. Iterate on your MVP until you've addressed your users' pain points and created a product that solves a real problem in the market. Keep testing and iterating until you have a product that your target customers love, right? Can't emphasize that enough. Okay, so just to conclude this, idea validation is critical to building a successful startup. Don't skip this step. Market research, understanding your target customers, building an MVP, and gathering user feedback are all critical steps in the idea validation process. By following these steps, you can refine your product concept, reduce the risk of failure, and build a product that solves a real problem in the market. Remember that idea validation is an ongoing process, and you should continue to gather feedback from users and iterate on your product as you grow and scale your startup. Finally, don't be afraid to pivot if your idea isn't working. Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places. In fact, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, over 80% of my startups, and I've invested in over 20 startups as an angel investor in the past few years, and out of those I had 4 successful 7 plus figure exits. And out of those startups, 4 of them are ongoing businesses that make $1 million or more in revenue every single year. And so and this is my personal experience and I can bet on it, I can vouch for it. Pivoting actually helped, and pivoting came from idea validation. I'm very, very religious about idea validation. I'm always trying to validate my idea. I use focus groups. I actually hire advisors. If it's, I'm an advisor myself, but you know what they say? I got the dentist syndrome, right? I love this analogy of the dentist syndrome. A dentist cannot pull out their own teeth, right? They got to go to another dentist. So I hire advisors. I pay advisors to look at my idea as a third party, especially if they have market experience and they're not just advisors for the sake of it, but they've actually built businesses themselves or startups, and they've got exits, right? So I pay them to validate my idea. And during those validations, sometimes, crash and burn. We say, no, this is not a good idea. This is not something that will make a lot of profit in the long run. Yes, it's solving a problem right now, like what's happening with AI, right? With ChatGPT and all these things. Some of the ideas now are solving some problems related to ChatGPT, whatever, but they will not be problems for long because ChatGPT is evolving. ChatGPT 5, 6, whatever, right? So investing $100,000 or half a million. And I've seen a lot of pitch decks come in over the last couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks. Um, Startups looking for $500,000 and trying to provide a solution that is going to be non-problem very soon. In the next few months, it'll not be a problem anymore. So the solution won't matter. So yeah. Anyway, so I hope you found this useful. Again, tomorrow, again, I think we'll talk about real problems, and we'll continue this theme. On Thursday, I'll talk about buyer personas and avatars and things like that, which is a part of the problem, which is the part of this issue of idea validation and making sure that you're solving the right problem. Yeah. So till then, if you have any questions on this topic, just hit me up on LinkedIn, DM me, or on Twitter, and I'll try and offer my 2 cents. Okay. So till tomorrow, go forth and prosper.